Welcome to this Stonecutter Goat tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how I make these Necron Tomb World bases. They look great as part of a whole army, or to help make a particular character to stand out, and aren't very difficult to make. First thing you'll need is a base. I'm using a slightly larger base used for a scarab. You'll also need some super glue, cardboard, like that you find from a cereal box, or even the packaging that you get your miniatures in. You need some scissors and a pen, and your choice of basing material. I've got steel and mud here for mine. Next, if you want to help refine your base, I'd recommend a little bit of milliput, something to manipulate it. I find a knife to be the most useful, and maybe some additional basing materials, bits like cork or extra bits from your kits. And lastly, some paints or finishing touches like tufts to help really add character to your bases once they're finished. The first step here will be to cut out a piece of card roughly the size of the top of your base. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about making it match exactly. When cutting, I also like to add angular shapes to it so that there's still room for texture paste and stuff onto the base directly. Once you're happy with your cut out pieces of cardboard, the next step is to glue them down using super glue. Try and get the curved edges as close as you can towards the edges of the base, but if you go over, that's okay, you can cut it back with a knife if you need to. At this stage, I also added the sculpted rocks from the scarab kit. I use super glue because they'd be sticking themselves to the cardboard as well. Now I like to look at adding the glyphs and runes to the bases. To do that, I took inspiration from the Necron transfer sheets. They are found commonly within the Necron kits and give a good idea of the shapes and lines that make up the common iconography that a lot of people associate with the Necrons. Once I had some ideas down, I got my ballpoint pen and started to draw them on top of the cardboard that was on my bases. When I had a good idea of what I liked, I pushed harder and repeated the same pattern, making a small indent into the cardboard that could later be easily picked out with paint. Now it's time for the milliput. This is to help go around the edges and tidy them up so that they become flush with the edges of the base. Milliput is a two-part putty. You get equal amounts of both halves, mix them together and just leave it to set for just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to work with. After about 5 or so minutes you should be good to go. Roll it into a thin sausage-like shape and carefully place it around the edges of the rims where the cardboard meets the edge of the base. With a wet finger, gently press it into the gap, making it nice and squashed. If you let it sit there for a little bit, it'll start to cure and you'll be ready for the next bit. Now you can take a hobby knife that you've made the blade slightly damp and carefully cut away at the milliput, trying to keep it as flush as you can to both the top of the cardboard and the side of the base. Don't worry too much if you pull away a bit of milliput, it can easily be pushed back into place and cut off again. After leaving it for about 10 to 20 minutes, it should be good to carry on working with the base without fear of ripping off the milliput. At this stage, I added a few extra small stones using super glue, and then moved on to the texture base. Like I said, I used steel and mud for this base. I planned on painting over the top of it anyway, so the colour doesn't necessarily matter at this point, but you might find that you want to apply the paste after you've painted the rest of the base. After the base is dry, I tend to leave mine overnight. I sprayed the whole thing black to get it ready for painting. Painting is going to be different depending on how you decide you want to base your army, but for mine I started with a coat of Eshin Grey on all the hard stone areas, with some light dry brush over the textured surfaces. Then a dry brush of Celestial Grey. The streaks on the stone almost look like an alien sort of marble, and I quite like the effect. I then went on to painting the runes, starting with Warpstone Green as the first layer. A wash of Baletan Green helped give a subtle glowing effect to the runes, which I quite like. And then a thin line of Moot Green to help really make the glow effect work. And after painting the rooms of the bases black, they were complete and ready for the models to be attached. I also did a couple more examples to help show how these techniques can be applied to different styles of bases. Here's a deserty type base, a bit akin more to an Egyptian or deserty themed Necron army. And here's a jungly base for all those overgrown tomb worlds. Hopefully you found something within this tutorial useful, and I hope it helps you create really cool Necron Tomb World bases for your own armies. Below is a link to my blog, where I include a detailed step-by-step guide as well, in case that's how you prefer to digest this information. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon.